First blood. The U.S. Dauntless drifted silently through the Arcturus system, its sleek hull gleaming under the light of distant stars. As a scientific vessel, it carried no significant armaments, just a skeleton security detail and minimal defensive capabilities. Its mission was one of peaceful exploration, map the resource-rich asteroid field in this uncharted region, and search for signs of habitable worlds. Captain Sarah Reynolds stood on the observation deck, watching as her crew deployed sensor drones into the sparkling asteroid belt. After 6 months in deep space, the Dauntless had collected enough data to justify the mission's expense 3 times over. The discovery of rare Earth elements alone would fund the next generation of exploratory vessels. "Captain, we're detecting an anomalous energy signature," Lieutenant Commander Jackson said, his voice cutting through the ambient hum of the ship. "It's unlike anything in our database." Reynolds turned from the viewport. Origin. Bearing 227 Mark 43. Distance approximately 300,000 kilometers in closing. Fast. Reynolds frowned. Their charts showed nothing in that sector. No planets. No asteroids large enough to register. "Put it on screen." The holographic display flickered to life, showing nothing but empty space. Then, as if materializing from the void itself, an object appeared. It was smooth and angular, resembling an obsidian arrowhead nearly twice the size of the Dauntless. "Scan it," Reynolds ordered, a knot forming in her stomach. No response to standard identification protocols, the communications officer reported. "I'm broadcasting on all frequencies." "Unknown vessel, this is U.S. Dauntless of the United Terran Alliance. We are on a peaceful scientific mission. Please identify." The officer never finished his sentence. A pulse of energy, invisible until it struck, sliced through the Dauntless's port side. Emergency alarms blared as atmosphere vented into space. "Shields," Reynolds shouted, but it was too late. The Dauntless had only minimal defensive screens, enough to deflect micrometeorites, not weapons fire. "Direct hit to engineering," Jackson reported, his voice steady despite the chaos. "We've lost propulsion and power to decks 3 through 7. Life support failing." Reynolds made the only decision she could. Evacuation protocol. All hands to escape pods. She activated the ship-wide comm. "This is the captain. We are under attack by unknown hostiles. Abandon ship. I repeat, abandon ship." As the crew scrambled to the escape pods, Reynolds remained on the bridge, working with the skeleton crew to buy time. The alien vessel fired again, a surgical strike that severed the ship's central spine. Systems failed across all decks. "Last pod launching, Captain," Jackson reported. "You need to go." Reynolds shook her head. "Someone needs to make sure the distress beacon reaches Earth." She turned to the communications station, where Lieutenant Amara Chen was frantically working. "Status: quantum transmitter damage," Chen reported. "I'm rerouting through auxiliary systems, but I need time." Another hit rocked the ship. The bridge viewport cracked, a spider web of fractures spreading across the reinforced glass. "Go," Reynolds ordered Jackson. "That's an order." With reluctance, Jackson evacuated with the remaining bridge crew while Reynolds stayed with Chen. Together they worked to compile all sensor data and attach it to the distress signal. "Almost there," Chen muttered, fingers flying across the console. 95%. 98. The alien vessel positioned itself directly above the crippled Dauntless. A brilliant beam of energy began to form at its prow. "Transmission complete," Chen announced, looking up with a mixture of triumph and resignation. "Earth will know what happened here." Captain Reynolds nodded, placing her hand on Chen's shoulder. "It's been an honor, Lieutenant." The beam struck the Dauntless, vaporizing it instantly. The escape pods, scattered across the system, suffered the same fate, hunted down and destroyed one by one. There were no survivors, but the message reached Earth. Admiral Hiroshi Takahashi stood before the United Terran Alliance Emergency Council, his weathered face solemn as the recording played one final time. Captain Reynolds' voice, calm despite the chaos visible behind her, filled the chamber. "This is Captain Sarah Reynolds of the U.S. Dauntless. We are under attack by an unknown alien vessel in the Arcturus system. They fired without provocation or warning. I am attaching all sensor data we've collected on the aggressor. They're systematically destroying our escape pods. There will be no survivors. Earth must know. This was not an accident. This was extermination." The recording ended with a burst of static. Silence engulfed the chamber. 273 souls. Council Chairwoman Ileana Okafor said quietly. "Scientists, explorers, unarmed." "The alien vessel?" asked Councilman Zhao. Admiral Takahashi gestured, and a holographic model appeared above the table. "Based on the Dauntless's sensor data, we're dealing with a previously unknown species. Their technology is advanced, energy weapons unlike anything we've encountered, and some form of stealth technology that allowed them to approach undetected until they chose to reveal themselves." "Do we know why they attacked?" asked another counselor. "No," Takahashi answered bluntly. "But the methodical destruction of escape pods indicates this wasn't a territorial misunderstanding. They wanted no witnesses. Could it have been pirates? Marauders?" Councilwoman Mabiki suggested. "The precision of the attack suggests military training and technology. This was a deliberate act by an organized force." Takahashi paused. "We've designated them as the Vex, based on fragments of communication Lieutenant Chen managed to intercept before the Dauntless was destroyed." Chairwoman Okafor leaned forward. "Your recommendation, Admiral." Takahashi's expression hardened. "The Vex must learn that humanity does not suffer such aggression without consequence. I propose Operation Avalanche." He outlined his plan, and with each detail, the council members' expressions shifted from shock to grim determination. What Takahashi proposed was unprecedented in scale. 500,000 ships. Councilman Joe gasped. "That's our entire fleet and then some. You're talking about conscripting civilian vessels, reactivating mothballed military ships, accelerating production across all shipyards." "Yes," Takahashi said simply. "The Vex attacked one ship and killed everyone aboard. They must understand that humanity responds not by cowering, but by rising. Every ship, every available weapon, every volunteer who can pilot or fight." Chairwoman Okafor studied the Admiral's face. "You're proposing the largest military operation in human history." "I am," Takahashi confirmed. "The Vex have made a catastrophic miscalculation. They believed they could erase the Dauntless, and we would never know, or worse, that we would know and do nothing. They must learn that when you strike humanity, the response is not proportional. It is overwhelming." The vote was unanimous. Operation Avalanche would commence immediately. Within days, the industrial capacity of the entire Sol system pivoted to war production. Shipyards on Earth, Mars, and in orbit around Jupiter worked around the clock. Civilian vessels were retrofitted with weapons systems. Mothballed military ships were recommissioned. The call went out for volunteers, and humanity answered in numbers that staggered even the most optimistic projections. Admiral Takahashi established his headquarters on Titan, overseeing the largest military buildup in human history. Scientists worked furiously to develop countermeasures against Vex technology based on the Dauntless's data. Engineers designed new weapons systems and defensive capabilities, and in secret facilities across the Sol system, a new generation of combat mechs was being prepared. 20-meter-tall armored giants piloted by neural interface, the most advanced ground combat system ever created. 3 months after the destruction of the Dauntless, the first wave of the Armada was ready. Admiral Takahashi stood on the bridge of his flagship, the UTA Retribution, watching as ships assembled in high orbit around Jupiter. They stretched as far as the eye could see, a metal constellation of humanity's resolve. "All battle groups report ready, Admiral," his executive officer announced. Takahashi nodded, his expression grave. "Send the fleet-wide transmission." Across 500,000 ships, crews fell silent as Admiral Takahashi's face appeared on their screens. Men and women of the United Terran Alliance, today we embark on a mission unlike any in human history. We do not seek conquest. We do not seek resources. We seek justice for our fallen brothers and sisters of the Dauntless. Let this day mark the beginning of a new understanding throughout the galaxy, that humanity stands together, that we protect our own, and that those who dare to harm us will face not anger, but reckoning. For the Dauntless. The cry was echoed across every ship in the Armada. For the Dauntless. And with that, Operation Avalanche began. The largest fleet ever assembled by human hands entered FTL, bound for the Arcturus system and whatever waited beyond. Reckoning. The Arcturus system materialized before the first wave of the human armada. 50,000 scout ships and light frigates deployed in a sphere 5 light minutes in diameter. Admiral Takahashi had anticipated the possibility that the Vex maintained a presence in the system, but nothing could have prepared them for what awaited. A Vex battle group, 30 ships of similar design to the one that had destroyed the Dauntless, was engaged in what appeared to be a mining operation among the system's asteroid belt. The human scouts detected them before the Vex realized they were no longer alone. "First blood to us," Commander Satomi remarked from the tactical station aboard the Retribution, which had arrived with the second wave. Scout Group Delta has visual confirmation of Vex vessels. They appear to be harvesting resources from the same asteroid field the Dauntless was investigating. Admiral Takahashi studied the tactical display. Status of the Vex vessels. "They've detected our scouts and are moving to combat formation," Satomi reported. "Their energy signatures are spiking. Weapons charging." Takahashi's expression remained impassive. "Deploy the main battle groups. Full-spectrum electronic warfare package. Disable their communications first, then target propulsion systems. I want prisoners." Across the system, 200,000 human warships emerged from FTL, surrounding the Vex mining operation in a 3-dimensional enclosure of overwhelming firepower. The Vex responded with surprising coordination, forming a defensive sphere around what appeared to be their command vessel. "They're good," Takahashi acknowledged. "But they've never faced anything like this." The battle was brief but intense. The Vex technology was advanced, their energy weapons capable of slicing through standard shields with ease. But human ingenuity had anticipated this. Based on the Dauntless's data, engineers had developed adaptive shielding that recalibrated after each hit, becoming increasingly resistant to Vex weaponry. 20 Vex ships were disabled. 7 were destroyed when they attempted to self-destruct rather than be captured. 3 managed to activate some form of FTL drive, vanishing from the system despite the humans' attempts to prevent their escape. "They'll warn their homeworld," Satomi said. "Good," Takahashi replied. "I want them to know we're coming." Analysis of the captured Vex vessels yielded crucial intelligence. The aliens, bipedal, with chitinous exoskeletons and 4 arms, had established a colony system approximately 15 light-years from Arcturus. Translation of their databanks revealed a hierarchical society driven by expansion and resource acquisition. Most importantly, the human scientists discovered why the Dauntless had been attacked. The Vex had a term for humanity. The threatening species. Intelligence gleaned from their databases indicated a Vex scouting mission had observed Earth decades earlier and determined that humans were advancing too rapidly. The attack on the Dauntless had been the first step in a preemptive campaign to eliminate humanity before it could challenge Vex dominance. "They feared us," Dr. Eliza Santos, the fleet's chief xenobiologist, explained to the Admiral. "They saw our potential and decided it was easier to eliminate us now than compete with us later." Takahashi nodded grimly. "They weren't wrong to fear us. They were wrong to attack." The third wave of the human armada arrived. 250,000 ships, including the massive carriers housing the mechanized combat units. With the coordinates of the Vex colony system extracted from the captured vessels, Admiral Takahashi wasted no time. The combined human fleet, now assembled in its entirety, prepared to make the jump. "All vessels report ready," Admiral Commander Satoni announced. "Operation Avalanche is entering its final phase." Takahashi addressed the fleet once more. The Vex struck without provocation, without declaration, without mercy. They eliminated the Dauntless not in battle, but in execution. Remember that. Remember the 273 souls who never had a chance to fight back. His voice hardened. "We will give them no such courtesy." The human armada entered FTL, leaving the Arcturus system behind. The Vex colony system, designated terminus by human intelligence, contained 3 inhabited planets orbiting a yellow dwarf star. The central world, Terminus Prime, housed the majority of the Vex population and their governing high command. The 3 ships that had escaped from Arcturus had arrived just days before the human fleet, giving the Vex minimal time to prepare. Not that it would have mattered. When 500,000 human ships materialized in their system, the Vex response was a mixture of disbelief and panic. Their home defense fleet, impressive by any standard other than what now faced them, moved to engage, but it was like attempting to stop a tsunami with a seawall. The human armada splintered into its component battle groups, each with pre-assigned objectives. Aerospace superiority was established within hours. The Vex fought with the desperation of a species defending its homeworld, but they were simply overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the human response. As orbital dominance was secured, the ground phase began. Thousands of dropships descended through the Terminus Prime atmosphere, each carrying squads of infantry, and most importantly, the mechanized combat units, 20-meter giants of advanced alloy and devastating weaponry. The MCUs marched across the Vex landscapes, their steps creating rhythmic thunder that could be heard for kilometers. Vex ground forces deployed their most powerful weapons, but the MCU's adaptive shielding, developed from studying the captured Vex vessels, rendered them largely ineffective. In the Vex capital, designated hive center by human intelligence, Admiral Takahashi led a special forces team directly to the high command bunker. The mission was specific: capture, not kill. Humanity wanted answers, and more importantly, surrender. The Vex Supreme Commander, identified by the elaborate exoskeletal modifications that signified rank, watched as human forces breached the final defenses of the command center. When Admiral Takahashi entered, flanked by power-armored soldiers, the alien leader rose to its full height, nearly 3 meters tall. "You have come to exterminate us," the Vex commander stated through a translator. "As we attempted with you." "No," Takahashi replied. "We have come to show you the difference between our species. You attacked an unarmed scientific vessel without provocation. You hunted down escape pods to ensure no survivors. You planned the systematic extermination of our entire species." The admiral gestured to the holographic display, showing the human fleet in orbit. "We could do the same to you. We have the capability. We have the justification." He stepped closer to the Vex commander. "But that is not who we are." Takahashi presented the terms: immediate and unconditional surrender of all Vex military forces, reparations for the lives lost on the Dauntless, a permanent human presence in the Terminus system to ensure compliance, and most importantly, a fundamental revision of Vex policy toward other sentient species. "You feared our potential," Takahashi said. "Today you have witnessed it. Remember this: humanity does not seek conflict, but neither do we shy from it. We did not come to the stars looking for enemies, but we will answer those who make themselves our enemy." The Vex surrender was formalized within a day. News spread throughout human space. Operation Avalanche had succeeded beyond all expectations. The species that had callously destroyed the Dauntless had been brought to heel, not through extermination, but through overwhelming force and the choice of mercy over vengeance. As the majority of the human fleet prepared to return to Earth, leaving only a monitoring force behind, Admiral Takahashi stood once more on the observation deck of the Retribution. The terminus star glowed in the distance, its planets now forever linked to humanity's story. Was it worth it? Commander Satoni asked quietly, joining him at the viewport. The resources, the risk, all for one ship. Takahashi nodded slowly. It was never just about the Dauntless. It was about establishing, unequivocally, humanity's place in the galaxy. He turned to face her. We sent 500,000 ships to answer the destruction of one. That message will carry far beyond the Vex. It tells every species we may encounter that humanity protects its own. As the Retribution entered FTL, returning to Earth, Admiral Takahashi added, "The Dauntless was a ship of exploration, of hope and discovery. In the end, it discovered something profound, that when humanity is tested, we answer not with fear, but with resolve, not with retreat, but with advancement, not with whimpers, but with thunder." In the decades that followed, the Arcturus response became a cornerstone of human diplomatic relations with newly encountered species. The Vex, under the terms of their surrender, eventually became trading partners and, surprisingly to many, advocates for human expansion. They had learned what many would come to understand throughout the galaxy. Underestimating humanity was the first and last mistake any species should make.